All right, folks, I have a guest with me. I haven't talked to this guest in a while. I was on the phone with him a couple of days ago, and we were talking about Palantir. We were talking about SoFi. We were talking about everything. And then he had someone at his house because he's doing business all the time, so he had to hang up on me. But he's back. My guy, Adam. How you doing, buddy?
I am doing fantastic. First of all, do you hear me okay?
We hear you great. Your mic is awesome. You look like you're in the Matrix. So I'm very excited to see what thoughts you have for me about Palantir since you're in the Matrix. And
Yeah. Funny thing,
excited
I,
to
I
see you.
got the same mic. I got the same mic as you now. I didn't know. I didn't realize I did. I got a Shure, but I got the USB plugged in one, so it's actually really good. Um, First, I wanted to say something. I called Amit, but he was either twisted, gambling on drunken, drugged bender with hookers. I don't know exactly what he was doing. I know he was having a lot of fun because he usually answers his phone. So I want to say something. I want to say big, and I said it in my video, but you were definitely hungover. I want to say huge congratulations to Amit, man. The guy is 26 years old, guys. 26 years old. Just ask yourself what you guys were accomplishing at 26 years old. Like seriously, it's really, really
Dude, stop.
amazing.
You're gassing me up way too much. You're gassing
I'm
me up
not.
way
I'm
too
giving you.
much.
I'm giving you props, bro. I'm giving you props. You're working your ass off. You're hustling like crazy. Who knows what the future is going to bring? But very few people have the capacity to start something, and even fewer people actually have the balls, the grit, the determination to actually follow up and try to accomplish that goal. So I wanted to give you a huge shout out, and it shouldn't be overlooked. So yeah, big happy birthday, and good for you, man.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it more than you can
Yeah.
imagine. And you're one of the reasons you've been here this whole journey. You met me randomly 2 years ago, and you decided to support, decided to invest in me, decided everything. So it means the world. And a lot of people I met at Vegas were people who've either invested in me, they care about me, they support me, and it's just like the amount of just love and appreciation I've had. Like I cannot even express how blessed I am at this age to have a community of people, even if it's just like you on the phone randomly giving me advice, given you're a lot more accomplished than me at 38 years old. You've made many businesses, you've made millions of dollars. It means the world. So I appreciate you being here, man. I appreciate you joining me. And let's see if we can both make some money tomorrow on Palantir, or do we both
Yeah.
got to buy the dip and go into more
Nah.
debt?
So first of all, anybody that's not taking advantage of covered calls, I go over it with my channel members, making stupid premium, guys. Stupid premium. I mean, you could have sold a $20 covered call on Palantir and you were getting 4 or 5 cents per contract, which comes out for essentially every 100 shares that you have of Palantir, you're making $5. Think about that. You're making 5%, right? Not 5%. I'm sorry. Anyways, doesn't matter. I think that we're going to be doing really good, but all I care about is what's happening with the AIP, and that's frontline and center. We have a lot more marketing, a lot more public relations. I'm not going to be too excited with revenue right now. I think we're supposed to do 13%. That's all great. I'm looking for forward guidance. More importantly, I'm really looking forward to second half of 2024. So I'm not really going to be disappointed if we only hit 13. Obviously, I'm going to be, sad about it, but I'm not going to be like, oh, you guys suck, right? Obviously, I want to have a beat. But if we can even get 15, 16% like we did 2 quarters ago, or 3 quarters ago, I think 2 quarters ago, that would be great. And most importantly, get the gap profitability so we can get into the S&P 500. So I'm looking at growth for AIP specifically, growth in general. And I think that we're going to be getting a lot of contracts from the military right now with what currently is happening in Israel, with what currently is happening in Ukraine. And yeah,
So this
that,
is
that
what
that's what
consensus is. If we get 555 million, we would have 16% year-over-year growth, which is better than that 13%. The top line is expected to have benefited from strength in government and commercial contracts. So if they even get us 555, 557, we're going to be closer to 20% than we were before. And then obviously we are expecting to be gap profitable. Let me ask you this question, Adam. What do you think? So the stock was at $18 after this whole Israel situation happened. 1840 was the top. Now it's back at 15. What do you think sends the stock to $12 tomorrow if you had to make a bear case? Like just absolutely crushes the stock. What would they have to do for the market to be like, damn, we cannot own Palantir right now?
um if Palantir loses certain clients, if Palantir's growth is not there in terms of AIP, let's say their AIP growth is no longer there, like they
I
they
agree.
they, they just can't grow it. That's going to be the main main thing right now. Like that's what people are paying attention because this is like the new thing. This is the new frontier. This is the promised land that Palantir is supposed to bring us to. This is the product. This is supposed to grow as fast as Foundry for commercial. AIP needs to grow just as fast, which is going to increase our net dollar retention at the end of the day. Because if you're using Palantir AIP, you are already a Palantir Foundry client, which we see with a bunch of the different, demos that are currently going on. So if, for example, he says something like, we're seeing a decreased demand in AIP, this is going to be bad, especially because we can't give away for free AIP. This
Right.
is going to be really, really bad. If tomorrow somehow, some way and I don't know what the perception is, Ukraine loses the war, right? Russia takes over Ukraine. The Palantir stock is going to drop because we're kind of tied into that. Now, if Israel's operation right now that I believe Palantir is strong into it is going to come out as an announcement, which is not going to be tomorrow's, earnings, but like next earnings or something that, Israel's casualties were very small. And the reason why is they were looking for the terror tunnels and they were able to detect it using Meta Constellation, that brings up the price because right now Palantir is tied into America and their allies, right? So
Do you think they make a statement tomorrow on what's going on? I mean, they said we stand with Israel. It would seem appropriate to say a couple sentences about it. Do you think you would?
Yeah, I for sure see it. If they supported Ukraine and made a sentence of Ukraine and they talk about NATO, it will be extremely shocking if they don't, because they literally took out an ad for Palantir. And, there's many reasons for that, but just look at the founders of Palantir and then look at the advisors of Palantir and then look at their general statements and their general thinking besides for who they specifically are. So this is besides for Palantir as a company and as a motto, a thesis, the founders are very intertwined with what's happening right now in Israel, right?
I agree. And we'll talk more about Israel in a second, but I do think they're going to make some statement on Israel. I think you can't buy a New York Times commercial and then not make a statement during earnings about it. I agree with you. Revenue, I think, is going to be 555 to 557, 16% year over year growth. Customer count last quarter was 8%. So we need to have that going up quarter over quarter. So that needs to be 9%. So I think we had 31 customers last quarter, 38. We need to have like 45 or 46 or something, right? So we need to see that number go up. We're at 420 customers right now. We need to see that go to like 460, 450, whatever it may be. And then on top of that, we need to be GAAP profitable. Now, if we become GAAP profitable, do you think the S&P 500 cloud that's hanging over us is going to affect the stock? Because I don't think it's going to matter that much tomorrow. I think it'll matter later.
No.
But do you think it would
not at all tomorrow? It's going to be more when we get the actual announcement. For example, like whenever there's a stock split or the announcement that S&P, like any of these big announcements, the run up to the actual event, once we get the announcement, the stock price starts going up and then it drops after that and then it evens out in the future. So
correct.
Tomorrow we're not going to get any announcement because we still need to be reviewed, right, for S&P 500 inclusion. But it's extremely important that we're GAAP profitable. It's so funny that we never get our flowers. Nobody gives us our respect, right? So we weren't supposed to be GAAP profitable for quite a while, and right now it's been a year. So we get GAAP profitable 3 quarters ago, I'm sorry. And people are like, oh, this is only because interest rates are high. You can't maintain this. There's no way you can maintain this. That's because of a one-time offset. You sold part of a company. You guys ended up getting a bunch of revenue, but you guys can't maintain this. You can't maintain this. Well, lo and behold, we have 4 quarters. Well, hopefully 4 quarters of GAAP profitability, and we're getting included in the S&P 500. And still people are going to be like, Palantir ain't shit. Still people are going to laugh at us. But and I'm going to keep saying this, we have a lot of growth when it comes to government contracts right now. Like those government military contracts is not slowing down. I hate to say it, guys, but like it, hate it, bro, the world is fucked up and it ain't getting any better. And Palantir is very much needed. Maybe this is a scare tactic. Maybe this was planned. Maybe this is a conspiracy. I have no freaking clue. And I'm not going to debate if this is good or bad because I rather not have war. I rather have peace. But the world is not going to be getting any better, which means that Palantir is going to have a lot more business and people are going to get a lot more scared. And we have to keep producing this research in artificial intelligence and machine learning to counter our opposition, our enemies. Love it, hate it, believe it or not, that's what's happening.
I also think, we haven't even talked about AI yet. I was dabbling around on some things I'm working on, and it requires working with AI, and I'm doing it at a very small level, like LLMs and vectors, embedding, all that stuff I'm working on. This is like no joke. I mean, this thing is this idea of AI actually creating GDP growth, productivity booms, all that stuff. That's going to happen. I think that's why Palantir is continuing to get the premium. If tomorrow on that earnings call, investors feel that Palantir's role in AI, which is the whole reason Dan Ives and Bank of America are giving us those extended price targets, is not only increasing, but it's becoming solidified. As for that $250 million government contract you're talking about, we got in research and AI. That's another reason for investors to be more bullish. And if there's a dip, then maybe that dip is an exciting dip versus a scarier dip.
Absolutely. And look, I cannot see Palantir not growing massively with military spending. Military spending right now on software, although military spending as a whole is going up, it's still a small fraction. I believe that the Pentagon, the first time they even asked for an AI budget, they asked for 1.4 or 1.8 billion specifically for AI. It's one or the other number. It was a total package of like 3.4 billion, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And one was specifically for AI, and the other one was specifically for the JADC2, which is literally powered by Palantir. So it's insane if you think that Palantir is not going to be literally everywhere. NATO is going to be manning the fuck up after this. They are going to be manning up. Did you see the AIP demo from Ukraine? It's absolutely freaking bonkers. Think about it. He literally asked in a chat, hey, show me all of the hospitals that are damaged, show me all the hospitals that are hazardous, then show me all of the schools. And imagine if you stack this to, hey, we're getting $1 billion of funding next month. We're getting another 200 million in 2 weeks, and we're getting a shipment of a ton of lumber and then 2 tons of metal. I don't know. For example, how to best allocate this based on what's happening on the grid and what needs what resources faster, which is exactly what Palantir is trying to do, right? Give you the ability to do that. I mean, it's absolutely insane. How long would that take you to go through manually, through papers or Excel or PowerPoint, if the information is even credible? And I don't think people are understanding that. That's my opinion. I mean, I see it like this.
Do you think Karp's going to be the UK tomorrow? So that's actually the reason it seems like we're doing it in the morning, because he's in the UK for this AI shit. Do you think Rishi Sunak's going to be sitting next to him tomorrow? They announced the NHS deal. I'm joking here, but do you think they announce NHS and they finally get it done with?
I don't know. Me and you were laughing about that for a while. And then if I'm not mistaken, Chad posted something on Twitter that says that the NHS deal is, they said we picked, we have somebody already, but we're holding off on announcing it.
Correct.
Something like that.
Right.
So, I mean, it's possible that they're going to announce it tomorrow. I mean, it wouldn't really affect anything. An announcement's announcement, and big companies announce things all the time on earnings, right? As long as it doesn't affect your, insider trading, which it's not. So I actually do think they're going to announce it tomorrow, to be honest. If we got it, like, it's possible, guys, we didn't get it. That is quite possible, and that is going to mess up our stock price. Like, there's no doubt about it if we don't get it. I mean,
yeah. I mean, look, I'll go on a limb and say we'll get it tomorrow. I'm probably going to be wrong about this, so don't hold me to it. But I feel like tomorrow would be the best day to announce. And remember, companies collaborate with partners to announce things on certain days. Like a silly example is Rumble. Rumble announced a ton of partnerships with content creators on their last earnings.
Yep.
Because they want to announce it on a day where they have attention on the stock. So you never know. Palantir might just announce it. Karp did an interview with BBC. I think they're getting ready to do this whole kind of press run in the UK. What were your thoughts on that interview? And do you think that also is the reason we get the NHS deal, because now he's talking to the British media?
All right. The interviewer was absolute, in my best British way, shite. She was absolute shite. She was terrible. BBC is a freaking disgrace, as always. But I have a lot of bias on them, for everybody knows why. But anyways, BBC is disgusting. And Karp was a G. He straight up carped her. Once you go Karp, you'll never go dark. And he did a really good job reiterating and pounding the idea that, he literally says, this is paraphrasing. We don't have your fucking data. And even if we did, we wouldn't use it, but we have no fucking access to the data. And then he's like, the reason why you guys are scared is because other companies have to sell your data, but that's not Palantir. We can't even sell it if we wanted to. So she's like, yes, but the data could be sold. He's like, not by my company, by your government, but not by my company. Like, it's so crazy. Yes, the data exists. The data goes somewhere, but they don't have access to it. And he keeps like, and then towards the end, I feel like she started to understand. And he's like, bro, I can't do shit with that data, even if I wanted to, because I don't have access to it. Yes, in theory, it is somewhere. But it's not going to be it. So he's like, and the point is, we need to protect the data as much as possible. But, and then didn't they come out with Cleveland Clinic yesterday, where Cleveland Clinic just keeps doing, like, everything in healthcare that they're touching is getting, better and better. Like, even Chris, who's probably a huge bear on Palantir, gives them certain props, right? He's analytical. I'm assuming that Chris would even say, you know what, they're doing a good job in healthcare, right? Reducing the waits, because he's in the healthcare industry. I spoke to some people in the healthcare industries, nurses, things like that. And I spoke to them, and they haven't used Palantir directly or indirectly. Maybe they're using it and they don't know. But when I show them, this program, they're like, this is the huge problem for us. We're still doing everything analog in the dark ages, and it's super hard to coordinate. So, I mean, NHS needs Palantir.
Yeah.
Palantir needs NHS. This stupid notion that Palantir doesn't need NHS is the stupidest shit I ever freaking heard. There is no way in hell that Palantir does not need NHS either. Guys, they made $100 million worth of contracts over the last 3 years with them. 4 years, I'm sorry. Just think about that. And a $600 million contract is still a $600 million contract. Don't let these fools, buffoons, idiots tell you anything different. Very much so, NHS needs Palantir. Very much so, Palantir needs NHS for the absolute doors that it's going to open up for Palantir. What other companies?
I was going to say, I think that's the thing. The doors that are opening, right? 600 million is like a lot of money, and that matters. But like, if we fix the NHS, dude, like, that's like, that's not an easy thing to do. And I think there's just so many opportunities in the future if we're able to fix the NHS as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I agree with you. I didn't get, like, I was in Vegas when that CARP interview came out, and like I woke up like hungover at 2 p.m. and I saw this new CARP interview. I saw Twitter going crazy over it, and I was like trying to understand it. And all I can remember is this lady like interrupting him all the time. I'm like, but he says we're not selling the data, and she's like, but you could sell. He's like, we're not going to. And it's like, I get why they're not trustful of companies. GDPR in Europe is a huge thing, right? But Palantir's got to prove their point that they can trust them, and I think if we do, we're gonna win. Let's end it off talking about Israel. Do you believe Palantir is being used in Israel?
Yeah, absolutely.
And for what use cases do you think?
So there's a couple of all right, you got to follow the breadcrumbs, but there was an interview of Dr. Karp and somebody that works for Palantir, and the guy's name is Ethan something, and he held a high-level position. He's an Israeli guy, and I believe he worked for the government, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think he worked for the Netanyahu's. He was the CTO of Netanyahu's government office.
Yeah, so that's one thing. Two, there's mentions of Karp always gives Israel props, and although he says we're number one, he's like, by de facto there has to be a number two, and it's a distant number two. But he says it would be like America, Palantir, Israel, and then like everybody else. So he always gives them props too, right? And he says that many times in the interview. Like, people says, who's number two? And he's like, it has to be Israel, but it's not like a close number two, but he gives them props all the time. He has a huge office in Israel. And honestly, I think Iron Dome is being powered by Palantir. If you understand how Iron Dome works, there's a central radar system, and then there's 2 or 3 towers around it that shoots out the Iron Dome missiles 2 at a time. And it only shoots at missiles that is going to hit a target that's populated. So if the missile is going to a garage that's empty, it won't intercept. If it's going to the sea, it won't intercept. Or if it's hitting desert land, for example, it won't intercept. And it needs to make these decisions in real time, processing millions of data points, trajectories, and everything specifically for that location. Like, I don't know if Israel came out, with this technology themselves, it's amazing, but it seems like it's Palantir. I could be wrong. I'm completely just, my hypothesis
Hypothesizing, yeah.
on
It's
it.
not a bad
Yeah.
hypothesis either. And even if it's not being used in the Iron Dome, the argument now is that if they're having this ground invasion, same thing with Ukraine, right? Like Meta Constellation being able to have geospatial intelligence and make decisions and just call on a company to be in the background to help you. Maybe it is Palantir. I also think Palantir, because there's a lot of controversy right now about what Israel is doing, if they're doing it the right way, all that stuff. And that's a whole different discussion. But Palantir said they stand with Israel before any of this stuff happened. And so I don't think you go out of your way to align yourself with another country unless you know that there's something behind the scenes, because otherwise there's so much geopolitical risk, so much investor risk to just say that. Like, why would they say that and then have nothing to gain for it other than the moral sympathy of saying it, which is great, right? But as investors, we want results too.
Look, and then if you believe it or don't believe it, Palantir was able to find bin Laden for the US government. And the times, right? If I'm not mistaken, Iron Dome is 2011, Palantir 2008.
Yeah.
They keep upgrading the abilities of these things. It's in coordination with the United States. Israel shares technology with the United States. That's one of the few countries that gives back as good as it gets. So yeah, we take funding, but we literally develop technology. And maybe we find use cases for Palantir, right? Like if there's no Iron Dome, there's no use case for an Iron Dome for Palantir. So we can find use cases. We share this with the US. US uses this. Palantir increases their contracts with the US and military. But if we can find bin Laden, you think they're not helping them find terrorists in the terror tunnels right now? Like, think about it. Those are like caves. So they need to know where to attack, how to attack, where everybody is. So I think they are, and they're going to increase their presence dramatically with what currently is happening in the Middle East. And I think they're just going to keep getting a lot more contracts besides which is the Middle East and the United States through NATO.
Yeah. I mean, look, we'll see what happens with Israel. I think you put out a good case for why Palantir is involved. And, hopefully I think a lot of people want Israel to win at the end of the day. And if Palantir can help them, then that would be a good thing. I think the next biggest thing is like, obviously AIP customer growth has to be there. They said they had 200 customers last time, growing 50% month over month. That was at AIP con. Those boot camps, hopefully if they're working, and Palantir is able to grow customer count, maybe that number goes to 300. I mean, we saw some of the quotes, right? These data engineers been like, we're accomplishing shit in 5 hours that we couldn't do in 8 months. Like ridiculous proof of concepts that they're building. If that leads to more AIP customers, which doesn't mean they're getting revenue, but they are legitimate customers in the pipeline, I think the market at least has to be interested of like, how are you growing these many people month over month to use AIP? And then when you turn the revenue thing on next year, hopefully that ends up, monetizing a lot better.
Even in the BBC disgusting interview, they said like you were not warmongering, COVID mongering or something. You remember she said that term?
Yes.
Some dumb shit. And and he's like, what's wrong with that? He's like, if my product is so good and I tell you, hey, give me $10 million, you're going to say, are you out of your freaking mind? I don't know what the fuck you're selling me. He's like, but if I offer it to you for free, essentially, of course you're going to use it. Now, if my product really is that good, then you're going to be willing to pay a shit ton of money. You're then willing to pay that 10 million. But if it doesn't work, then no harm, no foul. And he's like, what's wrong with that? I do this for, commercial side all the time. And there is nothing wrong with that. Yeah, I offered you the product for $1. So what? You needed it. I had it. You wouldn't have used it otherwise. What is the problem? If it's that freaking whack, you guys wouldn't have increased it 4 times. From $1, it came to 100 million, guys. Like, people don't realize that. 100 freaking million. I believe the number is like 76 million pound they gave Palantir for NHS already. Same thing happened to NIH, National Institute of Health in the United States, right? This is exactly what's happening to companies like Tyson and BP and all those companies, the top 20s that keep spending more money.
See, I think
Palantir. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think a lot of companies can't do that, right? So that's why the reporter was like, well, you're just like manipulating the NHS's procurement process because you gave it to them for free. So the NHS is obviously going to use you. And Karp's like, well, this is a capitalist society where companies have to compete with each other, competition, in order to get deals. If my company can give it for free because we don't need that much money and because we believe in our shit so much that we're willing to give it for free because we know you're going to come back, then, and the other, Quantexta can't fucking do that. too bad for Quantexa. That's not an unfair procurement process. The NHS could pay Quantexa $5 million. They choose to pay us $1 because they'd rather pay us $1 and give it a chance than take something for something.
Yeah, 100%. So the thesis could work or the thesis could not work. You know who used to do this and it worked really well in the beginning, but then there was just better options and then they lost. So I'll give you the example. So if Palantir sucks, it wouldn't work. But because they're so good, it does. And I'll tell you who. Remember AOL.com? AOL Online? Remember they used to give you a disc and they used to give you a free 1-month trial? And a lot of people signed up because those AOL chat rooms were great, right?
AIM
But
Messenger.
all of a sudden, yeah, it was great. It was so good. AOL was great for, I don't know, a year. I have no idea the actual time frame. I just remember that there was a time that everybody was using AOL Online because that was all that there was. And they were giving it for free and then people used to sign up. I remember a lot of people used to do the free month. And after a while, they're like, you know what? I'll just sign up. I'm tired of redoing this every month. But guess what? Where's AOL now? Because better options came out. They weren't so great. But Palantir is doing the same thing, but they are that great. And there is literally nobody that comes close. You don't believe me? Check this shit out. So who's the competitors of Palantir? Snowflake, Datadog, Databricks, C3AI, right? Those are the four that come to mind. Like always, those are the four that come to mind. And to an extent, you have, Microsoft that does certain things, but Microsoft does so many different things that it's not a direct competitor. Where are these companies, right? The top AI company that just came out, number 1 was Palantir, number 2 was Google. I think number 5 was Microsoft that came out. C3AI was last place. I think Snowflake was nowhere to be found. And Databricks was like second to last, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head.
You're talking about the Dressner report.
Yeah, the Dressner report, right? 2021, bro. Pure AI sales, Palantir smoked everybody. Palantir had as much AI sales. It beat Microsoft, it beat Google, it beat IBM. I think Oracle was the other one there. But AWS, I'm sorry. They had more sales than Google and AWS together when it comes to pure AI sales, right? So they've been doing this for a while, but people are not giving them credit. On top of that, why is Alex Karp and Palantir at a AI security summit in the United States and they're in an AI security summit in the UK? Where is Snowflake? Where is C3AI? Where's
Databricks? It's getting colder. It's getting colder, but I don't see any fucking snow. Know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's cold in Jersey today. There's no snow.
It's absolutely freaking crazy. And if you want to take it a step further, Palantir announces Palantir AIP, and people are not giving them credit. It's so disgusting. And within a month, they don't just have a minimum viable product like, yo, this can do something okay. No, they got a literal working product. Then they have AIP Con 1. Then they have Palantir AIP demo that most people didn't watch. And then you have Palantir AIP Con 2. Now you have Palantir AIP boot camps. Where the fuck is Databricks? Where the fuck is C3AI? Where the fuck is Snowflake? They're still acquiring companies, multiple companies, to try to come up with a product next year that can compete with Palantir. But guess what's going to happen
just acquired another company for $100 million a couple of days ago after acquiring a company for $1.3 billion a couple of months ago. Snowflake acquired Neva for under $50 million. Palantir acquired nobody.
And this is to compete in LLMs. This is to compete and put out a product like Palantir. They know this. They know that's the future. But Palantir is so much ahead because Palantir has been doing this for the last decade. They just never called it AIP.
Yeah. No, I agree. Look, at the end of the day, I think the best scenario, and I know some people in the chat might not like that I say this, but if the stock tanks tomorrow, but AIP client growth is up, revenue is whatever, and they're GAAP profitable, that's a dip you buy. I think the only dip you don't buy is if the AIP customer count really, it barely goes up or they're showing signals in demand, weakness in demand, because that means the boot camps aren't working. From everything we've seen, the boot camps aren't only working. I mean, it's flying off the shelves in terms of how they're getting people to come in. And if the boot camps are working, client count is going up, and revenue stays